welcome to the deep dive.
Good to be talking about this.
Yeah, it's a big one. Today we're tackling a really significant issue, how social media impacts our mental well-being.
Especially for young people, it seems.
Definitely. We've gathered some interesting angles on this general discussions, but also a recent survey that actually polled teens and their parents.
Right, the Pew Research one from fall 2024 in the U.S.
Exactly. So our goal in this deep dive is to, pull out the key insights, understand this relationship between social media and our minds, and what these latest findings really mean.
Yeah, look beyond just the likes and shares. Get into the deeper psychological stuff that might be going on. We'll use those articles and that specific survey data.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Looking at the big picture, it's not simply good or bad with social media, is it?
No, not at all. Our sources really highlight that. On one hand, yeah, great ways to connect, find support even. But then there are these shadows, as you put it. Real risks for mental health.
It's that duality, you mean?
Exactly. That's crucial. Think about those platforms where everything looks perfect.
The curated feeds.
Right. Perfect vacations, flawless selfies. One of the articles really digs into how this fuels this constant comparison cycle.
And that could be tough.
Especially for teenagers, and particularly young women. With all the beauty standard stuff, it can really damage how they see themselves.
It's that endless scroll of highlights, isn't it?
Yeah.
Easy to forget it's not the whole story.
Right.
And it's not just appearances. There's also that buzz you get from likes and comments.
Ah, the dopamine hit.
Yeah, that little jolt of pleasure. It's like a reward system built right in.
Precisely. The brain says, hey, that felt good, do it again. And one source mentions how this can create a loop.
A loop?
Yeah, where you're constantly seeking that online validation, maybe neglecting other parts of life.
Like homework, hobbies.
Face-to-face time, exactly.
And it's not just the direct interactions on our feeds, is it? Sources also worry about the content kids might stumble upon.
That's a really serious point. Things like pornography or violent images. Kids might not be emotionally ready for that.
Right.
It can be frightening, confusing, maybe cause anxiety. Plus, there's the danger of, online predators, adults pretending to be kids.
The scary thought. And then there's the whole issue of misinformation, fake news.
Which spreads so fast online, it can really shape a young person's worldview, sometimes in pretty harmful ways.
Plus, cyberbullying. That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know the kind of deep, lasting emotional scars that can leave.
So all this connectivity, it can actually create a lot of anxiety.
It seems so. The pressure to be always on, respond instantly, maintain this perfect online image, it's exhausting. And the constant comparison, the risk of online harassment, multiple sources link this to feelings of sadness, isolation, even depression.
And practical things too, like sleep.
Definitely. Late night scrolling messes with sleep patterns and just difficulty concentrating on school or chores because your phone's always buzzing.
It does sound pretty concerning when you lay it all out.
It does, but we also need to remember the other side.
The positive aspect.
Yeah, the sources mention them too. Staying in touch, finding communities with shared interests, supporting causes.
Finding information, even mental health resources.
Exactly. It can be a tool for connection and support, like someone feeling isolated might find a group online that helps them feel like they belong.
So it's not black and white.
Not at all. As one expert, Tamar Mendelsohn from Johns Hopkins, points out, the key isn't just if you use social media.
But how you use it.
Precisely. That seems to be the critical factor.
Which makes sense. Is it adding to your life, or is it replacing important stuff?
Like real-world chats, family dinners, sleep.
That feels like the question we should all be asking ourselves, really.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that gives us a good overview of the general effects. Now, what about that specific Pew Research survey from last fall? What did it find about parents and teens right now?
Right. The InfoBay article covering it had some striking numbers. 55% of parents in the U.S. said they were extremely or very worried about their teens' mental health.
Wow, over half. That's significant.
And when you asked those concerned parents what the biggest negative influence was, 44% pointed straight at social media.
Nearly half of the worried parents blame social media most. Okay. What did the teenagers think? Do they agree?
Well, it's interesting. Teens were also concerned about their peers' mental health, definitely. But they mentioned a wider range of things.
Like what?
Bullying came up, general societal pressures too. Among the teens who were worried, 22% singled out social media as the most negative factor.
So still a concern for them, but maybe not the single biggest one like it was for many parents.
Exactly. They see it having an impact, but maybe it's part of a bigger picture for them. Could be a generational gap in perspective, perhaps. Or maybe teens are just more aware of all the different pressures they're juggling.
That's a really good point. Maybe parents focus on the newer thing, social media, while teens feel pressures from many sides. But it does sound like teens are becoming more skeptical about social media themselves.
Definitely. The survey showed a big jump in skepticism. In 2024, 48% of teens felt social media has a mostly negative effect on their peers.
48%. Wow, what was it before?
It was 32% back in 2022. So quite a leap.
That suggests they're really seeing the downsides, maybe in their own lives or among friends.
It seems likely. And it's not just their opinion changing, it looks like their habits might be too.
Yeah.
More teens feel they're spending too much time online.
Oh, really? What are the numbers on that?
45% said they felt they spent too much time on social media. That's up from 36% in 2022.
So there's some self-awareness growing there.
Seems like it. And the survey also found some key gender differences.
How so?
Teenage girls were more likely than boys to say social media negatively impacts their mental health, their self-confidence, and also their sleep.
That ties back to what we discussed earlier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The pressure around appearance often hitting girls harder online.
It really does seem to connect. And experts, like Mendelsohn again, are noticing these broader trends.
You mean the timing?
Yeah, she pointed out that the rise in reported issues like depression and anxiety among young people kind of tracks with the rise of smartphones since around 2011.
Especially among young women.
Right. Now, correlation isn't causation, obviously, but it's a strong link. It makes you think.
Definitely warrants more investigation. But despite all these worries, the survey found teens still see good things in social media.
Oh, absolutely. A big majority, 74%, still see it as a positive way to connect with friends.
Okay.
And 63% think it's a space for creativity. Plus, about a third, 34%, said they find helpful mental health resources there.
So it's definitely not all bad in their eyes. They see the benefits too.
They do. It's a mixed experience for them.
And you mentioned earlier they pointed to other negative influences besides social media.
Right. Bullying was a big one. 17% identified that as a major cause of mental health issues for their peers.
And general pressures.
Yeah, 16% mentioned just general pressures and expectations. The survey even broke down some of those pressures by gender.
What did that show?
Things like pressure around academics, looks, fitting in socially, physical strength, sports. The emphasis differed a bit.
How so?
Girls reported feeling more pressure about looking good and fitting in socially,
Okay.
while boys felt more pressure to be physically strong and do well in sports.
That's interesting. And what about the specific mental health issues teens observed?
Anxiety and depression were the most common ones they noticed in their peers, and they perceived these as being more common among girls.
But experts caution against assuming it is only girls, right?
Exactly. Judy Chu from Stanford made an important point. Boys might express distress differently.
Like through behavior.
Yeah, maybe seeming disruptive rather than sad or anxious. The survey actually found boys were more often seen as disruptive or getting into fights. It's a reminder that distress doesn't always look the same.
That's crucial to remember. On a more positive note, it sounds like parents mostly feel okay talking about this stuff.
Yes, that was encouraging. 80% of parents said they were comfortable talking to their teens about mental health.
That's great. Although,
the teens themselves felt less comfortable talking to their parents about it, only 52% said they were.
okay, still a gap there.
Bit of one.
Yeah.
And interestingly, more adults felt there isn't enough focus on encouraging boys to talk about their feelings, or on academic achievement, actually.
So, given all these potential downsides we've discussed, what can actually be done? What are some practical strategies for healthier social media use?
Well, several sources offered good advice. Establishing clear boundaries is key. Digital citizenship education, too.
What kind of boundaries?
Things like rules at home, screen-free times, maybe during meals or before bed, to prioritize real interaction and, sleep.
Simple things like no phones at the dinner table can make a difference.
A huge difference. Also, just encouraging open, honest talk about the dangers online.
So kids feel they can come to parents.
Exactly. Active supervision helps, parental control tools maybe where appropriate, and really fostering critical thinking skills.
So they don't just believe everything they see online.
Right. Helping them evaluate information is so important now.
And for all of us, just cutting back on time online seems like a common thread.
It really is. Practical tips include using time tracking apps just to see how much you're using it.
That can be eye-opening.
Totally. Turning off your phone at certain times, disabling notifications that aren't essential, limiting how often you check your feeds.
Being more mindful, basically.
Yeah, and thinking about why you're reaching for your phone. Is it boredom, connection, stress? And then finding healthier ways to meet that need.
Like talking to someone in person.
Exactly. More face-to-face time. Also, things like practicing gratitude, mindfulness, they can help counter those feelings of inadequacy that comparison culture fuels.
Getting outside, exercise, hobbies.
All vital for that balance. Offline interests are key.
Okay, so bringing this all together, it really is complex, isn't it? Social media's impact is multifaceted. Real benefits, but also significant risks.
Especially for young people whose minds are still developing,
And there seems to be this growing awareness now from both teens and parents.
which is a positive step.
And the core message seems to be about mindful use, setting those healthy boundaries in our digital lives.
Yes. While it offers valuable connection, we just can't ignore the potential downsides. That rising skepticism from teens themselves, that's a really important signal, I think.
It really is. So here's something to leave you with. When we see these mental health challenges amplified online, how much is it reflecting broader societal pressures? And what role do we all play, you listening now, what role can you play in fostering a more balanced, more supportive environment online and off?
That's a big question. Definitely something to think about. It's an ongoing conversation, isn't it, as technology keeps changing our lives?
Indeed it is. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thanks for exploring this really important topic with us.
Thank you. It's a good discussion.